Okay, so the next step after we get the stock in there is to start to set up the tools. And you may notice he points out that he's using a 3-inch cutter. He's going to face the part, which means just take a layer off the face of it. And then he points to the tool library, and he talks about that. Now, that tool library is not going to be in yours until you download it and put it in there. So let me show you how to do that. All right, so actually on this website, right next to the video, you'll see Fusion360 tool library. You click on that and you'll notice it downloads. I already did it a couple times. Basically that goes to my downloads folder. So it's in there. And how do we get that into Fusion? Let's go into Fusion. He does it, first he goes into the face tool, and then he goes to select the tool, which is here. And this is where we hit our roadblock. We don't have, well, I do now. Let me delete that. So you may not have a thing that says cloud. All right, yours might just say local. There might be nothing under it. Yours doesn't have to. Basically, you just right click on whatever folder you want to put into. You can put it anywhere really. I'm going to do it on cloud but you could do it on local. You just right click and import libraries. And I have downloaded it a bunch of times, but there's a .tools file. It's in my downloads. If you don't realize, you can just get it there. And after it loads, boom, we got all the tools that he just used. And so now we can select the diameter 3 face mill. And we can see it selects here. And let's see what he wants to do next. Oh, check that out. It shows it. All right. Okay, so the next thing that's in there, and he changed his spindle speed. He had it, yours might be different, but he put it on 4,000, so I'm doing the same thing. 4,000 there. The cutting feed rate, he slowed down to 25. Lead in, again, that's 25. And on our machine, we have a little machine, we may have to go even slower. Inches per minute means how fast it's cutting side to side, how many inches per minute. So it'll go 25 inches in 1 minute. So what does that mean? We'll see how well this cuts. All right, so feed rate, plunge rate. Oh.
Of it at this time.
All right, so honestly, this stuff is not as important right now. Just know that you can change those. Okay, then we could go into selecting our geometry. All right, so when you go to geometry, it already selects the stock, right? So you want to make sure that if you look at it from the top, your yellow or orange line is going to be past the outside of your part, because it's going to be based on your stock, which is your original piece of material. And it is. So we're going to go on to heights. And if you look at these, and it tells you what they are, right? You got the bottom, the clearance. Oh, at the top here says retract and feed. So let's say after it cuts, right? When it does cut, it's based on the top, I believe. And then when it's done that cutting, it lifts the tool up and goes to the retract position. And in this case, the feed and retract are the same. Basically, it does that so when it's done cutting, it doesn't move to the outside and then break the bit. It has to know to go lift itself, clear itself, and then come back down. So all these, I mean, they kind of work the way that right now they'll work. What the guy says in the tutorial is to make this say model top. So basing it from the model, it's just good practice because after you face it, you'll have basically measurements that you can just measure in real life from that part. All right, so model top, model top, model top, and this is not fitting. Cool. Okay, so when I forgot to do this top one, model top, and he has these at 0.4, 0.2, 0.1, and you can notice after you have if you put your cursor there, it should, well, it was giving you an explanation. Anyway, these are all good. 0.100. Okay, so we got this squared away. This is our heights. For passes, everything seemed to be fine. Now, what's going to be important in the future is going to be step over, and that's going to be ultimately how much of how much it cuts in, like side to side every time, because they're using, this is going to be a giant part. It's going to be 3 inches, so this would be fine. But just keep that, remember that word, step over. And we're going to talk about the lead in and lead out, but everything else is good right now. So I'm going to hit OK. And it shows you with that blue path. So this is your vertical lead in. Then it goes and it cuts. And it comes out here. In the video, he went back. So just double click on this. He went back to linking. And he made that instead of 0.3, 0.05. And you'll see that those curves and the lead-ins of that kind of disappear. All right. So they're still there, but they're just small. Okay, so it's time to do the second part. So he's going to use adaptive clearing. Creates a roughing operation that uses more optimized toolpath that avoids abrupt direction changes. So click on that, and we know we have our library already in here. You just got to go to Tool, and wherever your Titan building blocks are, and we're looking for the 3/8 end mill. The end mill is flat at the very end of it. You can see it over here, just flat. There are ones here that are like round at the bottom. That's not what we're going for. So make sure it's an end mill. Okay, select. Now, the rest of this is basically slowing this down and figuring out how much is going to be cut where. And so it would be nice to figure out what, you can look at what he's doing on here. He talks about what these do. The feed rate is how the inches per minute. And when for the ramp, that's coming in like as a helix or like a spiral. And he has 15, ours is 13, so it's fine. My numbers are actually pretty close to what we need it to be. So I really didn't touch any of that. Okay, so let's start actually cutting this part. We're going to use adaptive clearing, but make sure that you're using the one from the 3D section, because I tried using the other one by accident and it's not what you need. So you're going to adaptive clearing, 3D section. He spent some time adjusting these and they're pretty much perfect. He has this at 15, but 13 is even better, because if you're not sure, go slower. All right, so for the geometry, none of this was changed. But just so you know, if you're not sure what something does, if you just hold your mouse on it for a while, it kind of shows it. In this case, you would think you want to select something, but you don't. You just leave that none. Go into heights. Everything is pretty much good. At the bottom, he changed his or he didn't change it. It was already at model top. All right, so this, I guess the newer version knows that its bottom is minus 0.75 from the origin, but he was trying to point out that he wants it to be 0.01 negative 0.01 from the top, so that if you look at it, he wants it to cut a little bit past where the bottom of the part is. So you can either put that as model top negative 76, negative 0.76, or like I had before, from model bottom, and just make sure that it's just 0.01 lower. Okay, so when we go to the next tab and we're looking at the geometry, it's a lot different than what he has. For instance, we're missing some stuff. Honestly, I think we can just go to the next page without doing any changes on this one. And then we can go to heights, and we're going to make sure it's all model top again, just like model top, not top height. Model top, model top, model top. Let's just see what we're doing here. For this one, we talked about this before. We could leave it at 0.01 and then model bottom, but let's do what he wants, which is model top. And then that was negative 0.76, which, oops, goes right below. Let me bring that back up. There we go. So that brings it right below the bottom of the part again. Okay, so now we can go to the heights. No, the passes. And passes are basically how much it cuts every time. So it has to go back and forth a certain amount of times, and how much does it cut into your part every time it does that. You got basically step down and step over. And some of the stuff is explained a little bit differently in this program. And if you put your mouse on it, it should explain kind of what it does. But first thing he changes here is, because you got to remember, we're using a 3/8, and that is 0.375. So if we wanted to go, if we'd put 0.1, that's basically like a third of the way. It's cutting a third of the way in. That's the optimal load. Okay, so this must have been set up for a bigger tool at first. So he made that, what, 0.05 for the cutting radius. Not a big deal. Everything else is good. And then when we got the maximum roughing step down. So this is stepping down. So this is how much you would go like in the Z direction. There we go. It kind of shows it there. And he's going to plunge the whole 1/2 inch. So he basically just said this can cut. There's not going to be pass. It's just going to cut straight down. Okay, so that was, he said 0.8. It doesn't really matter as long that 0.8 is more than any of the cuts would be. And all right, then it's stock to leave. He's got it at 0.01. Yeah, it kind of gives you some explanation if you wanted to see it. Just you got to hold your mouse steady there. All right, going to linking. All right, so step down, stay down distance. I mean, this is 0.1875. I don't know if it matters so much. The clearance, it's got that 0.787. And then he changed this to 70. And he explains why in the tutorial.
Would agree.
All right, so yes, it's at 4 degrees, 0 degrees. Ramp clearance height, that's the same. Now the ramp diameter node is a pretty important one. Because right now it's bigger than the actual tool diameter, which is 0.375, right? So he makes it 0.35. 0.35. And minimum would be 0.3. And then we can hit OK. And it looks like it has the wrong, somehow I have the wrong thing. There we go. Hope I didn't lose any stuff. 0.76. Step down. Yeah, lost a little bit of it. Let me fix that. Somehow another still had the wrong part. All right. So anyway, I'm going to hit play. And so that looks like the right part. Now I changed it. Just going to play. Oh, it did generate. Okay. So you can see now at the top, instead of doing like a zigzag, it comes in and it spirals as it cuts. Pretty cool. That's the helical aspects that you're talking about. Let's look at the simulation. Show the stock. His is green. I don't know if it matters. All right. Simulate. There you go. And I should be able to hit play. You can see it cuts that. If you pause it halfway, you can really get an idea. All right, so that first one is a face tool. It's taking a little bit. And as you can see, and then it gets a new tool, cuts around the edges. Nice. You just want to make sure that it doesn't do anything crazy that you didn't expect. It's just cutting a little bit at a time. Notice it leaves stuff over here. It'll probably come back to it. It's doing the roughing anyway. You might still have to do the finish pass. Nice. There you go. Oh, shoot. So let's look at the end product. Notice there's our part, and it still leaves some. So that's what roughing does. It gets most of the stuff out, and then it'll do a nice pass. We're going to do another type of pass next. All right. I'll save that for tomorrow.